So, a few weeks ago, I got contacted by the fine folks over at Hasselblad again, and they asked if I wanted to give their new-ish Hasselblad X2D to a spin. And obviously, I said yes. And so, for a little less than 3 weeks now, I've had this puppy along with the 35 to 100 millimeter lens in my possession. And I already got a bunch of questions on Instagram whether I preferred it to the 907X and so on. This video is not about that though, but full transparency first, this video is indeed sponsored by Hasselblad, and I cannot express to you how incredibly grateful I am to have the opportunity to work with brands like this and get to try out and work with gear such as this. It's just amazing. But anyway, obviously the goal here is to make a few nice videos with this incredible camera and lens setup, and that brought up the tough decision on where to go and what to do with this. So back in late February, the family and I went to Switzerland and to Italy again for a few days. We spent some time at Lake Como, but since I made a video shooting at Lake Como with the Hasselblad 907X last year, I didn't want to do basically the same thing again, just with the X2D2 this time around, even though I did use it a bunch there too. But we also had planned to visit Portofino for a few days, and so I thought that would be the perfect opportunity to experience something new and just bring this Hasselblad X2D2 along for the ride. And so we stayed at a little Airbnb, not in Portofino, but just outside of Portofino in Santa Margherita Ligure, which is probably not how you pronounce it, but lovely little place overlooking the Bay Area and just a few kilometers away from Portofino. So let's start at the beginning. I'm not going to walk you through our entire vacation. This video is not about that. This video is just about a day we spent exploring in and around Portofino and using the Hasselblad X2D2 while we were out and about. Just FYI, I also had the 55mm f2.5 with me, but I ended up not using that lens even once on that particular day because honestly there was just no need to. The 35 to 100 millimeter lens had me covered the entire day. It's a fantastic lens, but yeah, more on that in a minute. So our day started at our Airbnb overlooking the Santa Margherita Ligure Bay Area. Beautiful views if you can look past the scaffolding that was on the house that we stayed in. And after brewing up a cup of coffee and a very relaxing morning overall, at around 10:30 we decided to drive to the harbor area, leave our car at a parking lot and walk the remaining 3 kilometers or so to Portofino. I'm loving this area right here already. It is so beautiful, and we were here in May of last year, but back then it was super crowded. It was actually so full of tourists that we weren't even able to get into Portofino. This time around though, there's basically nothing going on. Look at this. This is a parking situation, like easy peasy, and I mean, so super looking forward to this. Let's go. And so we just grabbed our bags and backpacks and went for our scenic walk along the coast of the Ligurian Sea. Now, if you're ever in Portofino, I would absolutely recommend you to go on that walk because the entire way to Portofino was just a feast for the eyes. It's almost outrageous how aesthetic an environment can look even in the most boring light imaginable. That aside, a word of caution, even though the journey towards Portofino is a visual treat, it's also slightly nerve-wracking at times because for most of the way you have to walk on the street with tight corners and zero visibility, and since it's Italy, you should not expect anyone to slow down for pedestrians under any circumstances. Since I am a cup half full type of guy though, I decided to make the best of it and used my chance to grab a few drag shutter shots of motorcycles and mopeds whizzing past, 360 no-scope style, which was also a great opportunity to try out that new continuous autofocusing system. And what can I say, not a single missed shot. Not to spoil my long-term impressions video of this X2D2, but I think it's already fair to say that the autofocusing system on this camera is amazing. It's pretty much state of the art. With that said though, since I'm super used to just focusing and recomposing my shots from years and years of shooting with the Leica Q2, I stayed in AFS for most of the time and just switched to AFC when I wanted to shoot like a moving car or a moped, or maybe get a shot of my kid running around or whatever. And if I wanted to do that, I also just turned on face recognition, which also works incredibly well. There's a small button below the lens that is set up to toggle between AF modes by default, and another one on the front to switch between different AF settings like face recognition, cars or animals, or just turning the system off entirely. And after a short period of getting used to the button placement, this worked really well for me. Anyway, eventually we made our way into the harbor area of Portofino and went straight for the first table at a restaurant to grab some Aperol spritzes, and after that we wandered around the marina for a bit. We had some ice cream and essentially just soaked it all in, which is probably also why I ended up not taking a whole lot of photos there. So we had a little Aperol spritz, as you do, and now we are just roaming around the area, trying to figure out what we actually want to see and where we can get the best photos. So we are right now on our way, hopefully, up to Castello Brown, I think that's what it's called. Let's see. After a while then, we actually found a way where we could bring our stroller up the hillside and make our way to Castello Brown to get a nice view over the marina. About 5 minutes into our journey, it was time for some snacks, and so we opted to go for a little picnic and munch on the leftover pizza that we had brought from our previous day's shenanigans. And I mean, if you want a picnic with a view, it doesn't get much better than this. After that, we went onwards towards the Castello. We stopped here and there, sometimes to take photos, but also just to enjoy the views, or occasionally to change a diaper. The joys of being parents. Eventually then we made it to the Castello, just 10 minutes before they closed up the entry. The entry fee is €5 or so per person, and well worth it in my opinion. It's a beautiful place with a nice terrace where you can get a cappuccino at a surprisingly reasonable price, but most importantly you get those views over the marina. Dare I say it, perhaps the best views of the entire trip. Needless to say that we stayed for a bit and took about 1 billion photos, and I made good use of the integrated X-Pan crop of the X2D too. After that, we decided to also check out the lighthouse that was nearby. We went there, took a few photos, and eventually slowly made our way back down the hill towards the marina. On our way, we ran into this guy who was apparently walking his goat. It was such an interesting sight, but I completely fumbled the settings on the X2D2 and missed the shot. Just goes to show that the best camera in the world couldn't save me from taking bad photos. But I guess that's not a surprise to anyone really. Anyway, since it started to get darker and also colder, we decided to walk back to our car, and I did of course take a few more snaps along the way. Originally we had plans to find some restaurant in Santa Margherita and get some of that sweet Italian pasta, but as it turned out there was a pizza spot right next to our car park, and since it was getting dark and we were somewhat done with the day at that point, we just went there and hey, surprisingly great pizza and atmosphere. After that we just headed back to the car and back to the Airbnb. I did take a few low light shots at the parking lot using that insane IBIS system, and even at 1/4 of a second I got crispy images no problem. As it turned out, I could have probably even gone slower than that. So that was our day in and around Portofino. Lots of walking and lots of photography, but let's talk about my thoughts of using this beast of a camera for a trip of this type. Okay, 2 things. First of all, the weather really wasn't ideal for photography in a place of this type. Now, the temperatures don't make any difference to me, but if you are in a Mediterranean place like that, you really want to have at least a bit of sunshine, a bit of interesting light, just a bit of that Mediterranean warmth that you want to bring across on your photos, and that really makes all of those colors pop. and we didn't get any of that at all. However, with that said, Portofino was still absolutely lovely, and I would still very much recommend going there in the off season, because we didn't exactly have the place to ourselves. There were still people around, but it was nowhere near as crowded as it would have been had we gone there in, again, May, as we tried last time. And so overall, it's a win in my book. You can get an overcast or rainy day even in May or even in the summer, and we could have gotten a sunny day even in late February or early March. And so I would recommend you to visit Portofino in the off season so that you can really take in the place and have a very relaxing time overall. But with that said, let's talk about the camera and the lens setup. Now, I have mixed feelings, to be honest. You see, I usually don't mind to bring an Overkill camera on any kind of trip, but this time around it really sort of felt like I was doing the camera a huge disservice. I don't know how to explain it to you exactly. It's a bit like driving to Portofino in a G-Wagon, which is appropriate, I guess, because many people do just that. But what I'm trying to say is that, yeah, sure, it would work. It would get you to Portofino in style and in comfort. It's probably a bit too big for the place, but that doesn't really matter. It's a statement, it's a classic, but it's really not what that car is made for, if you know what I mean. It's really much more capable than doing just that type of stuff. And that's kind of the feeling that I got with this. I mean, if you look at the Hasselblad X2D2, it really looks like business. It looks like a tank. It's very much a serious camera, a modern camera, and a highly capable camera. And it looks like it just wants to be taken on some true and epic adventures to the far corners of the world. And yeah, it's not exactly Portofino. And so part of me feels like it would have been more appropriate to bring something like this Hasselblad 907X, which is also an insanely capable camera and very much overkill in its own right, but it's a bit more casual, a bit more laid back, if you like. Yeah, don't know. But even though part of my mind was thinking just that, I have absolutely no regrets whatsoever about bringing this X2D to Portofino. This camera just slaps. In terms of just raw performance and functionality, this X2D2 is without any shadow of a doubt the most capable camera that I have ever used. I mean, to start with, it sports a 100 megapixel medium format sensor with a 10-stop IBIS system, which is ridiculous and really unleashes the full potential of that sensor. And it shoots 16-bit RAWs, and you get state-of-the-art autofocus performance and continuous shooting now as well. And that alone would already make for a great case to use this camera. But we are really not done yet, because arguably even more important than that is the overall user experience. And I think that is where Hasselblad has really knocked it out of the park. Let's start with how you interact with the X2D2. The screen is so big, bright and crisp, it's ridiculous. It puts every other regular camera screen that I've ever used to shame. And the same is also true for the electronic viewfinder. The menus are well structured, aesthetically pleasing, and very intuitive overall. You also get a good amount of buttons and wheels with some level of customization. I also very much love the shoulder display. Now, I do know that it's not the only camera that has a shoulder display, but I personally haven't used a shoulder display since my old Canon DSLR days, and my God, was I happy to have a shoulder display on a camera again. It's just, I don't know. I've missed it so much. And speaking of those old DSLR days, I have not yet held a mirrorless camera in my hands that is as ergonomic as this guy. And in that regard, it also really reminds me of an old school DSLR. And I mean that in the best way possible. This Hasselblad is just solid in the hands. It's incredible. I love it. And lest we forget the overall aesthetics. I wouldn't call this camera beautiful, but it's certainly good looking in its own right. let me put it to you this way. If the Hasselblad 907X is like an Aston Martin DB5, timeless design, iconic, elegant, just beautiful, the X2D2 is more like a modern G-Wagon. Super rugged, unapologetic, and also timeless in a way. It looks and feels like a camera that you could conquer the world with, especially with the 35 to 100mm lens on it, which, I mean, look at it. It's a beast. And so yeah, the X2D2 was absolutely overkill for a trip of this type, but my god was it a joy to use. It's big and serious and insanely capable, and with the 35 to 100mm lens, I also had all the standard focal length available at my disposal. Now personally, I would also love to try the Hasselblad 20 to 35mm ultra wide zoom lens at some point, but for 95% of the shots, this 35 to 100mm lens is really all I would ever need. Granted though, the overall setup is big by today's mirrorless standards, but in the great scheme of things, it's perfectly manageable. The X2D2 with the 35 to 100mm lens even fits well in my favorite small camera bag, the Overkill Freiburg, with room to spare for something like a Pocket 3 and some accessories. Just for the record though, as much as I love this 35 to 100mm lens, if I could only keep one lens for the Hasselblad system, I would still most likely just go for the 55mm lens instead. And the sole reason here is because at heart I'm a prime shooter and I love this 55mm lens to bits. That 43mm equivalent focal length is just perfect and it's super sharp, it's compact. And yeah, again, love shooting primes, but you can't beat the versatility of that 35 to 100mm lens, which is pretty much a 28 to 76mm lens in full frame terms. And yeah, so if you can have both, have both. So in conclusion, the X2D2 has really taken me by surprise. Now, it's not a surprise that this is a very competent, high quality camera and that this can produce incredibly detailed photos. But what did actually kind of surprise me was just how much I loved using it and how good it looks and feels in real life. This is probably the first camera in God knows how many years that is a modern camera and a modern looking camera. So not relying on, pulling on my heartstrings with some kind of retro design that I fall for all too often. No, this does not do any of that. And I still have the incredible urge to use it and I just cannot stop thinking about it. It's an incredible camera. Yeah, what's left to say? It's a joy to use. And I really just cannot wait for spring to fully kick in because I want to take this on so many more adventures and trips. Yeah, really looking forward to using this camera a bunch more this year. And with that, thanks again to Hasselblad for sponsoring today's video. And thank you so much for watching. I hope this was interesting to you. If you want to follow along and check out my photography, just hop over to Instagram and subscribe if you want to see more camera, EDC gear and photography related videos. And I will see you in another video soon. Until then, take care. Bye.